Alrighty, I've been waiting to talk about this one. Two shows that came out towards the end of the 60s decade, which I was incredibly into, was Sabu to Ichi and Dororo. As far as a samurai-esque cinematic experience is concerned, both of these shows do a pretty good job in this category, in my opinion. Sabu to Ichi is about an old, badass monk-like samurai who is blind and spends his days as a part-time masseuse. And he does this while also bringing criminals of Edo to justice. Along his side, he is accompanied by a young warrior named Sabu, who isn't a very experienced fighter, but is very mature and devoted to understanding and learning the ways of being a protector. One thing that I liked is that the episodes can get a little dark. The plots of these episodes involve, some child abuse, some pimps, and others are fairly violent for their time. Something that you would expect from anime. They had a lot more death and blood than most shows. The only bad episode that doesn't at least explore some facet of any characters was the episode where Sabu gained his eyesight back, because you can just tell what was going to happen at the end, and it was just a waste of time. Like with Daredevil, like if he were to get his fucking sight back, he's just going to fucking lose it again, because you could just tell what was going to happen at the end, and it was just a waste of time. But overall, it was still a worthy experience. And if you want to watch any good show from the 60s decade, this is definitely should be at the top of your list. The animation, of course, I guess you could say is nothing special. However, I would say that the show does use what it has to its advantage. The art style is decent, and whenever some action is occurring, I did find myself caring because of the stakes and the well-drawn battle scenes. The animation may not be as fluent, but of course it still looks cool when people are fighting, which is important. I find the episodic plots to be very interesting, and usually bring out an interesting dynamic with both Sabu and Ichi. Dororo to Hyakkimaru, however, was a show that I did not expect how good it was, and I would probably say it's a little better than Sabu to Ichi. The raw emotion made a lot of these stories really hit hard for me, and is a thing that this show did the best in this era of TV anime. So the show is essentially about these two kids, one of them named Hyakkimaru, which I think is supposed to be in his late teens in the show, and the kid Dororo, who's, a young kid, I don't know how old. And it's about their adventures together as they hunt demons. Hyakkimaru was born with 40-something pieces of his body missing due to his father sacrificing him to demons. Hyakkimaru was eventually given new arms and legs from an old man who took him in, and later also built him special arm swords, which are pretty sick. So anyways, he finds out basically what he has to do is he has to set out and kill all the demons that took his body parts, and we also learn that for every monster he kills, he gets a piece of his body back. Overall, I find this character to be off-putting, but of course in a good way. When he first unsheaths his arms and uses his arm swords, it's pretty weird and cool looking. He's dark and edgy, while also coming off as a wise badass. He has noble philosophies, and as the narrative goes on, the more you get to learn about his mom and his overall self-determination to get the job done and shit. So the kid, Dororo, on the other hand, is a whole can of worms. So anyways, as some new war started, Dororo's parents are put through the emotional ringer. So many obstacles are thrown at them, and eventually both his parents die in the most depressing ways possible while trying to protect him. Dororo later recalls this experience in a flashback episode, and before the young boy can cry about it, he then starts to laugh and chant his catchphrase about how he's the great Dororo, or whatever, this thing. And all Hyakkimaru could do really is just admire the kid's determination to push forward no matter what. We could see that the kid is crying, but he has the determination to thrive and move on, or whatever. Both these characters are extremely strong, and that's what I appreciated about them. They're dark and edgy, but also, full of life and not super dull, as they struggle through town to town, as they struggle from town to town. As far as the animation is concerned, I have the exact same opinions on it as I did with Sabu to Ichi. As far as the animation is concerned, I have the same opinions on it as I did with Sabu to Ichi. It's a black and white show, so it's a little stilted, but it's paced well, and still has great, entertaining episodes that keep me wanting more. And the fights also look pretty cool. Well, that's it for 60s TV anime. I'm sure in the future I'll find more shows that I couldn't find this time around. There were definitely plenty of shows that I just couldn't find any footage of at all. And of course, as I mentioned, anime movies started in the 50s, and there's still a ton of anime films to check out, but I just focused on TV anime this time around. The first couple 70s shows that I watched were Speed Racer, Bible Nisei, and Attack No. 1. Although I do admire Speed Racer, I don't have any current thoughts on it besides it being a show that's executed all rightly. However, I will say that the crappy animation is much more noticeable this time around, especially when the racing happens and you see repeated background animations, but I guess for the most part it's alright. The next show I watched was Attack Number 1. Despite my many conflicting opinions about it, I guess I liked it, kinda. The premise actually isn't some kind of battle show, but instead a show about volleyball. It stars this middle school girl who, for some unrealized reason, gets into volleyball. I'm not saying that she needs to have some kind of broad origin or anything, but she just kinda wanted to do it and take it super seriously for little to no reason. I have a hard time relating with this girl because she barely emotes, and in my opinion has a pretty crappy character design. Her eyes specifically, for some reason, just aren't really normal looking. And of course there's team drama that goes on, but for the very beginning of the show at least, I didn't find that to be compelling because our main character is just so tough on them. And I'm not saying that's exactly a bad quality that she wants to win, but she has little to no character in the beginning, and she just starts off being a super hard ass. And with no proper motivation, I have no investment because she's just so bland. The whole deal with the show is that I feel that it has some interesting rival dynamics, but ultimately it messed around too much to the point where even when it started getting good, it didn't really feel warranted to even say that the show is average. The rivals were by far the best part of the show. When the first rival chick met the main character, there was some backstory that she knew the main character's incest cousin, and it was whatever. But this girl was actually pretty good at volleyball and gave the main character some problems. And after the rival tried to frame the main character for being a bad person by stabbing all the volleyballs, yeah, I know, I was worried that the show was getting crappier. But then the rival ends up joining the team permanently and is forced to step herself down from being a big shot in order to win. After that, her and the main character really developed this sort of bond with each other that was actually somewhat pleasing to watch. A group of volleyballers from another middle school essentially embraces the rival, and the characters team up in order to kick their butts. And after that, the two characters are forced into this weird friendship. They had to climb up a bunch of hills in order to get to this volleyball sanctuary so that they can learn from, I don't know, I guess the previous champions and get better. And of course this was done because the two of them had to learn some special technique, and through their struggle and hard work, they actually found respect for each other, I guess. I found these two characters pretty unlikable, but after this happened, the two of them kind of became better through this process. And that was pretty much the end of the 10 episodes I watched. Now that I am thinking about the show in retrospective, I don't think it's that horrible. I mean, I could see the show elevating itself to a 6 out of 10, but for right now, I don't really know if I could recommend the show fully or not, unless you're like some insane anime fan. But before I could recommend it, I'm gonna have to see more of it first. Super in-depth analysis of the entire show, and I don't think I necessarily agree with absolutely everything that that YouTuber says, but I can definitely recognize that that creator is definitely really passionate about the show. You know, I don't know. It's not. There are definitely many aspects of it to appreciate. It's just personally, I guess I just didn't get a ton out of the characters. It's one of those things where the video is so extensive that it makes me feel the need to never really talk about the show again, really. But I don't know. I guess if you're a hardcore anime fan, go watch it, I guess.